Welcome to Sleep Path, where we listen, we slow down, and we gently drift into restful dreams. My name is Alara, and I'll be your guide tonight as we embark on a peaceful journey to the sun-dappled shores of southern France, to a place where wild white horses roam freely across golden sands, and time itself seems to soften its edges. This story is a gentle invitation to let go, to trade the weight of your day for the lightness of calm, to step away from the noise of the world and wander into a landscape where silence speaks in waves and hooves, in sea, air, and memory. Tonight we'll travel to the Camargue region, a sanctuary of marshlands, flamingos, salt flats, and the legendary white horses that have lived here for centuries. We'll follow soft trails along the beach, listen to the rhythm of the sea, and lose ourselves in the beauty of a forgotten coastal village. So whether you're tucked in your bed, lying on the couch, or simply resting your eyes, you're exactly where you need to be. Let each word settle around you like a gentle tide. Let your breath slow, your body soften, and your thoughts drift further and further away from the day. You're safe, you're welcome here, and your journey into deep and peaceful rest begins right now. Before we begin our story, let's take a few moments to arrive. To arrive not at a place, but in your body. In this moment, here and now. As you lie back and begin to unwind, know that you don't have to do anything special. There's nothing to fix, nothing to solve. Just this moment and your breath. That's more than enough. If you'd like, you can join me for a gentle breathing exercise, in something called box breathing. It's a simple rhythm like the tide, like the hoofbeats of a horse moving across soft sand. Inhale, hold, exhale, and hold again. Each part just 4 seconds long. Let's begin together. Breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 2, 3, 4. And hold. 2, 3, 4. Once more, inhale. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 2, 3, 4. And hold. 2, 3, 4. Notice how it feels. Notice how your body responds when your breath becomes a rhythm, a quiet song of calm beneath the surface. If you'd like to continue on your own, you're welcome to. If not, just allow your breath to fall back into its natural, easy pace. Let go of the weight in your shoulders. Soften your jaw. Let your hands rest heavy by your sides. Feel the quiet within you begin to expand, like a horizon opening wide. Now, with a slower breath and a stiller mind, let's step together into the dreamlike world of the Camargue, where the sea meets sky and white horses dance in the morning light. You find yourself on the edge of a quiet world. A golden beach stretches endlessly before you, its soft sands glowing under a sky painted in gentle blues and pearly grays. The sun is hiding behind a thin veil of clouds, but its warmth still kisses your skin like a memory. A light breeze plays with your hair, carries the scent of salt and wildflowers. You take a slow step forward. The sand beneath your feet is cool and powdery, like sifted flour, fine and forgiving. Each step leaves a perfect print behind you, a quiet reminder of your presence in this peaceful place. To your right, clusters of tall grasses sway gently on the dunes, their blades brushing against each other like whispers. A few seabirds glide low over the water, their wings motionless as they float on invisible currents. In the distance, a small fishing boat rocks gently on the sea. Blue and white like a faded postcard, it bobs softly as its nets are cast into the calm Mediterranean waters. You imagine the fishermen inside humming old songs, their voices lost to the wind. You walk a little further and sit down among the dune grass. The sand gives way beneath you, warm and cradling. You lean back on your hands, tilt your face to the sky, and let your eyes gently close. For a long moment, there is nothing but stillness. The sound of waves lapping the shore, the cry of a distant gull, the rustling of grass around you. You take a slow breath in. The salty air fills your lungs. You hold it for a heartbeat and then let it go with a soft sigh. Again, breathe in and out, and once more. The beach, the sea, the sky, they all seem to breathe with you. Time slows, and as it does, something stirs on the horizon. A shape, no, several shapes, far off, just beyond where the sand meets the sky. White, graceful, moving together. Their silhouettes shimmering like a mirage in the afternoon light. The white horses of Camargue have arrived. They come as if conjured by the wind. 7 white horses moving across the beach like living poetry, hooves barely stirring the sand, manes flowing in the breeze like silk. From the distance they appear weightless, almost unreal, as if the sea and sky had dreamed them into being. Their formation is natural, graceful, like a flock of birds in motion, a wide V shape with the oldest at the center, his head held high, eyes scanning the horizon with quiet authority. You remain still, not out of fear but reverence. There is a sacredness to this moment, as if the earth itself had decided to breathe through them. Their coats shimmer not pure white but silver touched by the clouds above, reflecting the sea and echoing the sky. As they draw nearer, you can hear the soft thud of hooves on wet sand, the rhythm slow and hypnotic. A trail of prints follows behind them, fleeting, delicate, already beginning to fade. And then the leader breaks formation. He steps forward, eyes calm and curious, as if drawn to your stillness. You remain seated in the dunes, the grass brushing your hands, your breath shallow with awe. The horse halts just a few steps away. He is powerful, but not imposing. His limbs are strong, his chest broad, his neck short and sturdy, yet it's his eyes that hold you, deep brown, thoughtful. They seem to ask a question, not with words but with presence. Why are you here? What have you come to find? You offer no answer, only your breath, only your gaze. He steps closer still, bows his head, a gesture of trust. Then, with a shake of his mane, he sends a soft shower of sand into the air. It dances briefly in the light, before landing on your arms, your lap, your legs. You smile, and he seems to smile with you. You imagine naming him, something old and noble, a name that carries the wind, the sea, and stories untold. He nudges you gently with his nose, as if to say, "Yes, that will do just fine." You raise a hand slowly, and he leans into it. His warm cheek settles into your palm as if you've known each other in another life. In that stillness, you forget the world, the day, the year, the weight of everything. There is only the softness of fur, the scent of salt, and the hush between two beings who expect nothing from each other. The grasses rustle, the breeze shifts, And just like that, he steps away. The other horses have waited patiently, their heads turned toward you, their bodies calm. He rejoins them, and without urgency they begin to move once more, weaving through the waves, free and unburdened. You watch until the last flick of a tail disappears behind the curve of the dunes. But something stays, a feeling, a presence, as if the sea itself had left a message just for you, written in hoof prints across the sand. The horses have gone, but the wind hasn't. It lingers, playful and gentle, brushing your cheek as if to say, "Don't just sit there. Come." You rise slowly from the dune, brushing soft grains of sand from your legs. Some cling to the fabric of your clothes, little golden reminders of where you've been. The grasses rustle behind you, still swaying in rhythm with the sea. In front of you, hoof prints mark the shoreline in gentle arcs, weaving their way into the distance like a whispered invitation. You begin to walk, barefoot, unhurried. The sand gives way beneath your steps, cool in the shade, sun-warmed in patches where light filters through the clouds. It feels almost alive underfoot, soft and shifting, as though it recognizes your presence. Each step is a soft exhale, each breath a silent rhythm in time with the waves. The tide has come in closer now. Small foamy waves roll forward, kiss the land and pull back again. The water's touch is cool but not cold, and your feet sink slightly into the wet earth as you step into the shallows. A pleasing shiver rises up your legs, waking something in you. Not energy, not tension, but awareness. You walk along the edge of sea and sand where the world blurs. Not land, not water, not sky, but all of it at once. The horizon stretches ahead in gentle blue-gray hues, the clouds above still clinging to the sun, casting long shadows that dance on the surface of the sea. Farther up the beach, you catch the glint of sunlight on damp sand where the horses once galloped. Their hoof prints form a quiet pattern, sometimes deep and bold, other times shallow and hesitant, as if even they were savoring the stillness. You follow their path, not with urgency, but with reverence. The sound of the sea grows richer the farther you go, not louder, but more layered. Waves crashing in the distance, bubbling foam at your feet, the call of a bird overhead, and somewhere, the soft clicking of shells rolling back and forth with the tide. You pass driftwood shaped like sculpture, half buried in the sand like forgotten stories. A pale feather flutters by your toes, weightless and slow. You pick it up. It's long, delicate, slightly curved, maybe from one of the seabirds overhead, or maybe your imagination offers a gift left behind by the horses. You smile and tuck it gently into your pocket. As you continue walking, the sky begins to change, not darker, not yet, but deeper somehow. The light has taken on a golden hue, brushing every surface with softness, the kind of light that makes the ordinary beautiful, turning footprints into poetry, shells into treasure, and silence into a song. You pause. Ahead of you, the trail of hoofprints takes a turn, not back to the sea, but toward the dunes. You follow it instinctively, stepping out of the water and into the softer, drier sand once again. Here the breeze is warmer, carrying the scent of sun-baked earth, salted wind, and something faintly floral, perhaps lavender or thyme growing wild nearby. Up on the dunes, the path curves around a low rise, and for a moment you lose sight of the sea. In its place, silence. Not emptiness, but fullness. A hush filled with presence. The wind stirs the grasses. The earth beneath your feet is dry and warm, and all around you the world holds its breath. You crest the hill slowly and see them. The horses, all 7 of them, further inland now, moving slowly across a stretch of open sand, their coats glistening in the angled light. They seem smaller from here, but no less majestic. You don't call out. You simply watch. They're grazing near a pool of water, hooves disturbing the surface just enough to send ripples outward. The leader, the one you met, turns his head slightly, and for a brief moment, your eyes meet again. It's only a glance, but it's enough, as if to say, you're still with us. You belong here too. You sit in the grass again, this time on a higher dune, knees pulled to your chest, arms wrapped loosely around them. There's no need to go anywhere, no need to speak. Only this to watch, to breathe, to feel yourself become as quiet as the earth, as open as the sea, as wild and gentle as the horses below. Time stretches, the wind settles, and the sun, still veiled behind soft clouds, begins to lower in the sky. Eventually the horses move on, not with fanfare, not with farewell, but with the steady calm of those who are simply part of the land. You remain where you are, the breeze tracing the curve of your cheek, the feather still resting safely in your pocket, the tide still whispering its secret songs behind you. And when you rise again, your steps are even slower, not because of weariness, but because you are now a part of this rhythm, a softer tempo, a quiet unfolding. The trail before you widens into something new, a path of wood tucked between grasses and wildflowers, leading you deeper into the Camargue, into wetlands, reeds, and the secret places of birds and salt. But that part of the journey begins in the next breath. For now you pause one last time, turn your gaze to the sea, and whisper a silent thank you to the horses for appearing, for leading, for reminding you of something you didn't know you'd forgotten. You leave the dunes behind, but not the silence they gifted you. Ahead, a wooden boardwalk begins. Weathered planks laid gently over the earth, rising just enough to lift your feet above the marshes that stretch wide into the stillness. You step onto the wood and it creaks softly beneath your weight, not in protest, but in welcome, like an old friend saying, "I remember you." On either side of the path, the landscape transforms. Grasses give way to wetlands, shallow pools scattered like mirrors, reflecting a sky that now glows with the golden hush of late afternoon. The colors around you begin to shift, not bright, but soft. Muted purples, dusty greens, faint yellows like wild buttercups lost among reeds. And there, dancing on the wind, the sweet scent of sea lavender. You pause to find its source. Clusters of the small flowers grow just off the path, their stems delicate but firm, rising from salty soil with quiet determination. You lean over the railing to look closer. The petals are so tiny and their color so gentle, a shade that feels like memory. You bring one bloom near your face. It doesn't smell like the lavender you know. It smells cleaner, more like the sea mixed with something green and ancient. You close your eyes, and the scent carries you briefly to a place you can't name, but know you visited before. In a dream, in a thought, perhaps in another version of this very moment. You linger there, caught between breath and breeze. And then you open your eyes again, back to the boardwalk, the marsh, and the life all around you. Butterflies flit from flower to flower, wings like stained glass in motion. One lands on the wooden rail beside you, wings slowly opening and closing, as if it too is breathing. You watch it for a long moment and it doesn't leave. It simply stays, still calm, alive. Further along the boardwalk, the sounds of the world grow even quieter, not silent, but hushed. A new kind of silence that includes birdsong, the rustle of reeds, the gentle clink of water against wood. You notice movement in the shallows. A long-legged bird wades through the water. Its steps deliberate, its reflection rippling just below it. A heron, its feathers sleek and silver, neck arched like a question, eyes locked on something unseen beneath the surface. It doesn't notice you, or maybe it does, and simply doesn't mind. You stop walking, you let it be, let the moment last. And as you stand there, the sun dips just slightly lower, casting the marsh in a kind of golden haze. Everything soft-edged, glowing, as though the world had exhaled. Then a flicker of pink. You turn your head and see them, flamingos, hundreds of them, standing together in the water like delicate sculptures, some balanced on one leg, others resting, heads tucked into their own feathers, as if lost in dreams of flight. You walk slowly closer, mindful not to disturb them. Their colors are richer than you imagined, not just pink, but coral, rose, and faint orange. Like a sunset folded into feathers, they stand calmly, as if they've always been here, as if time forgot them in the most beautiful way. One lifts its head, blinks at you, and then folds it back beneath its wing. You take a deep breath. You don't need a photograph. You'll remember this. You always will. The boardwalk winds gently to the left, away from the water. And though your feet move forward, your mind lingers behind. In the scent of lavender, the softness of the butterfly's wings, the mirrored gaze of the heron, and the elegant stillness of the flamingos, soon you come upon a small wooden sign, hand-painted and slightly faded. It shares stories of the land, the plants, the animals, the old salt marshes and rice fields. You read about red rice, grown in the mineral-rich waters of this place, and the salt, how it's gathered in crystal shapes from rose-colored ponds tinted by ancient algae, its hues shifting with the sun. You smile at the thought that something so simple, a grain of salt, a blade of grass, can hold the history of centuries. And in that smile, something shifts within you. You came here to rest, but you're doing more than resting. You're remembering how to notice, how to be still, how to be here. As you continue along the path, the boardwalk begins to widen. The reeds part to reveal open space. Beyond the marsh, meadows stretch toward the horizon, and in the far distance, a structure begins to rise. A wall, perhaps, or the outline of a village. But for now, you remain on the path, feet light, heart quiet, and the marsh behind you hums its own quiet lullaby, a song of lavender and light, of pink feathers and silver wings, of stillness held gently between one breath and the next. You leave the marshes behind, but they linger in your lungs, in the scent of salt on your skin, in the rhythm your heart has borrowed from the tide. The boardwalk gives way to earth again, not sand now, but a firm, sun-warmed path, lined with low stone walls and scattered wildflowers. Tiny purple and yellow blooms peek out from between the rocks, growing freely as if no one had ever told them where they could or couldn't belong. Ahead, the land begins to rise slightly, and soon, the shape of something old and steady comes into view. A wall, long and golden, like honey poured into brick, its edges worn smooth by time, but still standing, firm, proud, as if guarding secrets whispered across centuries. This is no ordinary town. You check the small note in your pocket, a page you tucked from your guidebook, softened now by your walk, edges curled like the petals of a flower. It reads, Aigues-Mortes, the town of still waters, named not for silence but for the ponds and salt flats that cradle it on all sides. Waters that do not rush but reflect. Waters that wait. You step closer. The gate of the old fortress opens like a doorway into a dream. Round turrets frame either side, their narrow windows once used to spot approaching ships, now framing only blue sky and the tops of waving trees. You walk through slowly, feet tapping on cool stone, the sound echoing gently in the shaded arch. Inside, the town unfolds in warm golden hues. Cobblestone streets wind gently, leading you past tiny shops with wooden shutters painted in soft greens and blues. A baker's window displays rustic loaves dusted in flour, and next door a small boutique offers linens fluttering in the breeze. But your eyes are drawn to something else, a quiet gallery tucked between two taller buildings. Its door is open and a soft chime rings as you step inside. The air smells of pine wood and paper. The light is warm, filtered through gauzy curtains. On the walls, paintings, all of them in soft strokes, muted palettes. Landscapes of the region, wildlife, sunlight on water, but one canvas holds you still. A white horse, not running, not rearing, just standing, calm and proud, its mane tangled by the wind, its eyes gazing towards something you can't see. As you approach, a voice speaks behind you, low, kind, and touched with the accent of the South. You met them, didn't you? You turn. A man stands in the doorway to a back room, middle-aged, sun-kissed, his clothes worn in the way that suggests they've been loved, not neglected. He leans against the frame, arms crossed, a soft smile curving his lips. You nod. He steps closer, his voice dropping slightly. That one? The horse in the painting? That's Azur. He was my grandfather's favorite. You blink in surprise, he chuckles softly. My grandfather was a guardian, he explains. One of the horse keepers. He raised them, rode with them, said they understood more than most men. You glance at the painting again, and suddenly you see it. A depth in the horse's eyes, something beyond the canvas. The man continues. They're not wild exactly, not like people think. They belong to the land, yes, but they also belong to us, to the rhythm, to the silence. You ask if they're still nearby, the horses. He nods slowly. They go off on their own often, especially Azur's line, but they always come back. Always. There's a pause, then he walks behind the counter, unwraps a small parcel, and sets something down in front of you. It's a print of the painting, smaller, but just as beautiful. For you, he says, no charge. You saw them with your heart. Not everyone does. You want to thank him, truly thank him. But your words feel too small, so instead, you meet his gaze and nod, letting silence do the speaking. He smiles and gestures toward the back. If you ever want to visit the ranch, see them again, ask for Luke. You tuck the painting into your bag and step out into the sunlight once more. town greets you again, but now it feels different. Not a place of strangers, but of stories. You walk slowly, passing a small cafe with tiny wooden tables, chalkboard menus scrawled in looping handwriting. The clatter of dishes blends with the low hum of conversation and clinking glasses. A breeze carries the scent of roasted herbs and warm bread, mingling with lavender and lemon. You turn down a side street and find yourself in a quiet courtyard. A fountain gurgles at the center, its water catching the light like liquid crystal. Children's laughter echoes briefly from somewhere unseen. And above it all, the town wall stands tall, watching, remembering. You look down at the painting again. A white horse, eyes soft and steady. A reminder of what you saw, of what you felt, of what you still carry with you. Not just the memory of the horses, but something deeper. The stillness they walked in. The silence they trusted. The unspoken knowing between the land and those who listen. You tuck the painting back into your bag and continue on, following the road as it begins to slope gently upward toward the fortress wall. From there, you'll see it all. The beach, the marshes, the fields, and maybe, just maybe, a distant glint of white moving slow and sure through the grass. But first, you climb, one step at a time, stone beneath your feet, wind at your back, and the golden light of evening guiding your way forward. The stone steps rise slowly beneath your feet. Worn by centuries of quiet footsteps, their edges are soft and rounded, as if even time has learned to be gentle here. You pause at the top of the staircase, catching your breath, not from exertion, but from the sight that unfolds before you. The town spreads out below like a story told in rooftops and shadows. Terracotta tiles glint in the slanted sun. Narrow streets wind between them like tributaries, carrying the quiet rhythm of late afternoon. To your right, the square hums softly. Waiter clears a table with a cloth tucked over his arm. Two elderly women chat beneath a plane tree, hands moving more than their mouths. Laughter escapes from a cafe's shaded terrace, then fades like a pebble dropped in a deep well. But it's the view to your left that holds you still. There, stretching beyond the town's ancient walls, is the rest of the world, the one you've been walking through all day. Wetlands shimmer in soft greens and silvers, crisscrossed by ribbons of water that catch the last of the sun like threads of gold. You see the wooden boardwalk in the distance, winding like a path forgotten by maps. And beyond that, the sea, wide, glistening, endless, its waves now calm, as if lulled into stillness by the setting sun. Somewhere out there are the flamingos you watched, their feathers folded into dusk, the marsh grasses still holding the shape of the wind, the sea lavender quiet in its bloom. And farther still, just before the horizon curves into memory, you see them, the horses, white specks in a green field, 7 of them, grazing slowly, unhurried, whole. You wonder if they are the same ones you met earlier. You think they must be. You watch them for a long time. No fences, no riders, just presence. They move in a rhythm older than the town itself, as though they were carved from the salt and wind long before stones were stacked to build these walls. And as you stand there, a strange sense rises in your chest. Not longing, not nostalgia, but something softer, something like reverence. You turn slowly, looking back over the rooftops. Even the chimneys seem to lean toward the past. And somewhere a bell chimes once. Its sound is low, steady, like the heartbeat of the town. You begin to walk along the wall. The path is wide enough for two, but you walk alone, and yet not lonely. You pass narrow turrets with slits of light, once meant for archers, now framing only birds in flight. Each step feels lighter than the last, as if the town is gently lifting you, guiding you through its breath and bones. You reach a corner and the wall curves gently to the west. There the sun has begun its descent, not dramatically but with grace, as though even the sky has learned the art of stillness. The light turns the salt flats pink, not the pink of candy or petals, but the pink of quiet things like flushed cheeks or faded letters or the inside of seashells. You stare out across that strange, beautiful landscape. Pools of water ripple with color, the algae that paint them invisible to the eye, but speaking through color, like nature's own handwriting. And in that moment, you understand something. The land here isn't just scenery, it's memory. It remembers every hoof print, every gust of wind, every moment someone stood where you're standing now and fell silent from awe. You lean on the old stone railing, its surface cool beneath your palms. Tiny flecks of moss grow in the cracks, green and soft. You close your eyes, and in the quiet, images return to you like pages turning in a slow breeze. The sound of waves lapping the shore, the weight of a horse's gaze, the feather tucked in your pocket, the scent of lavender on your fingertips, the whisper of reeds in the wind, the hush of the art gallery, a man's voice saying, "They always come back." You open your eyes again. The horses are still there. So is the sea, so is the town. But you are a little different now. You feel it in your breath, in the way your shoulders have lowered, in the softness that has settled behind your eyes. You continue walking along the wall, past more towers, more turrets. The sky deepens from gold to rose, then melts into soft blue-gray. Lights begin to flicker on in the windows below, not harsh, but warm, inviting. As you near the final steps that will lead you back down into the town, you pause once more, turn, look, and there, just at the edge of vision, you see it. One of the horses lifts its head. You can't be sure, but you feel it. He sees you too. You don't wave, you don't call out. You simply smile, then take the first step down, not away, but deeper into the story. One where quiet is sacred and stillness, a kind of return. The last of the stone steps greets your feet, cooler now as the sun dips lower behind the rooftops. The town feels quieter than before, not empty, just softened, as though it too is beginning to rest. You walk slowly through the narrow streets, guided only by the golden wash of fading daylight and the warm glow spilling from shop windows. Your footsteps echo softly between the buildings. A cat slinks across a cobbled path and disappears into the shadows. The air smells of baked bread and old wood, of wine and dried herbs, of comfort. You pass the gallery again. Its lights dim now, the front door closed. The painting of the white horse still hanging in the window. You place your hand gently over your bag, feeling the folded print tucked safely inside. It's warm from your body, like a memory that's decided to stay. Further down the lane, a building appears, modest, 2 stories tall, its exterior painted in pale cream, with faded blue shutters closed tight for the night. On its front wall, in elegant black lettering, one word runs vertically from the second floor to the door: cinema. You pause at the base of the short stairway. 5 stone steps lead to a pair of glass doors, behind which a soft amber light glows like a lantern. The doors swing inward with a quiet creak. Inside, a woman sits behind a low counter, her silver hair braided loosely over one shoulder, her glasses slipping gently down the bridge of her nose. She's reading a book, its spine worn and well-loved. She glances up as you enter, smiles. You don't say much, you don't need to. She gestures with her chin toward the back hallway, and with a small nod, returns to her page. You walk past vintage movie posters that line the hallway walls, faded reds and golden yellows, scenes from decades ago. Adventure, romance, longing, everything slowed down, like a dream caught in still images. To your left, a single open door waits. No marquee light above it, no sign, just stillness. Inside, the theater is small. 10 rows, 10 seats across. Plush, velvety chairs in a deep burgundy tone, their fabric worn smooth by time and tenderness. Wall sconces glow gently, their light casting soft patterns that shimmer like candlelight. You make your way to the center, your steps muffled by the thick carpet. There's no one else here, it's just you. And the hush, you sink into a seat. It welcomes you. The chair gives slightly beneath your weight, curving around your body like a familiar embrace. You lean back, your head finds the rest, and you sigh, deeply, softly, fully. The lights dim even more, leaving only the smallest flickers on the sidewalls. No movie begins, no sound, just space, just rest. You slip off your shoes, stretch your legs slightly, and settle in. The air in the room is just right, neither warm nor cool, but balanced, like it was made for comfort. You close your eyes, and for a moment it feels as if the whole day has returned, not as a memory, but as a gentle presence moving through you. You see the beach again, its golden sand stretching wide beneath a cloud-strewn sky. The horses galloping freely, their manes like white fire trailing behind them. You feel the salt air on your skin, the lavender on your fingertips, the soft splash of water around your ankles. You hear the call of a flamingo, the silence of a white horse bowing its head, the creak of the boardwalk beneath your step. You remember the butterfly, the heron, the quiet gift from a stranger in a small gallery. And somewhere in all of that, beneath it, between it, beyond it, you remember yourself, not the hurried version, not the one made of lists and deadlines, the quiet one, the you that walks slowly, listens deeply, breathes fully, a version of you that is still here, still resting, still watching the waves behind closed eyes. You feel your body grow heavier in the seat. Your breath is slowed. Each inhale deeper, each exhale longer. The screen remains blank. But you don't need pictures. You have your own now, etched softly across the landscape of your thoughts. And as your limbs grow soft, your jaw unclenches, your shoulders sink, you realize you're not watching a story anymore. You're inside it, and the story is inside you. You reach into your bag, feel the folded paper. You don't unfold it, just hold it, let it be. The lamps on the walls dim a little more, their glow now barely there, like fireflies drifting in a slow circle. And in that warm hush, your mind begins to blur the edges of thought. The present slips into memory, memory into dream. The day folds in on itself like a letter sealed with quiet, sent into sleep You're safe. You're home. You're free. And all that's left to do now is let go. The room is still. No movement, no sound. Only the quiet echo of memory gently settling into the folds of your breath. You lie back in the soft, velvet seat, your body now weightless, not floating, not flying, but resting, perfectly cradled by the silence around you. The air is warm, the light is low, the world has grown hushed, as if it too has curled up beside you, ready to sleep. Behind your eyes, the day begins again, not as it was, but as it lives now inside you. A golden beach, soft and endless, waves reaching toward your feet with silver fingers, then retreating again into the sea's quiet breathing. White horses gallop through mist and morning light, their manes slow ribbons in the wind. You see the leader again, his calm eyes meeting yours, his breath warm against your palm. You see the butterfly resting on the wooden rail, its wings rising and falling like your chest. The lavender petals, their scent still soft on your fingers. The flamingos, standing on one leg in the blush-colored water, some still, some dancing, their feathers glowing like twilight dreams. The boardwalk winding through the marsh, each plank remembering your footsteps. The herons still hunting in silence, the grasses parting like pages turning. You feel the print in your bag, the horse, the gift, the story captured in brushstroke and light. You hear the quiet laughter from the cafe, the hum of distant voices on cobbled streets, the splash of water in a small town fountain. You remember the fortress wall beneath your hands, cool and strong as you looked out across the salt flats, the wetlands, the distant fields, and the horses, always the horses, still grazing, still wild, still near. Your breath moves slower now. Inhale and release. Not because you're trying, but because you're letting go. You feel your limbs grow heavy, your jaw loosen, your fingers rest. No more thoughts, no more questions, only echoes, only light. You're drifting, softly like mist across water, like a feather caught in the hush between waves. The world becomes smaller, not because you are shrinking, but because everything else has stepped back, leaving you gently, respectfully to rest. And in this sacred quiet, something unfolds, a sense of return to the part of you that doesn't speak but feels, the part that knows not how to rush but how to be. You remember what it felt like to watch the horses without needing to move, to breathe in the sea air without chasing a destination, to simply be. Here now you are still. You are safe. You are held. Let the rhythm of the sea become your breath. Let the clouds in your mind float slowly across the sky. Let the wind of memory blow softly through the reeds of your thoughts. Let go of today. Let go of tomorrow. Let go of everything but this. The sound of your breath, the calm in your chest, the weight of nothingness that feels like peace. Sleep is near now, not arriving, but already here, woven into the stillness of this quiet room, into the hush of the horses, into the color of the salt. Let it wrap around you. Let it carry you. Tonight, your dreams will be slow, your thoughts soft, your heart light. You are walking once again on the shore. The tide kisses your feet. The horses run at a distance, but one turns its head, looks back, and then disappears into the mist. You smile, and finally, you sleep.